Hey, tree huggers.
Welcome back, guys. I'm Stacy Pulley.
And I'm Terri Cooper.
And we are the co-owners of Family Tree Therapies. And today we bring you a very special guest, Miss Debra Beckman. And we are really, really excited to have her here with us today. She's a speech pathologist, and I'm going to read her bio because, it's pretty long, as you can imagine. She's been working in the field of communication disorders since 1975. So listen up. She's got a lot of good stuff to say, specializing in motor speech disorders. She's worked in a variety of settings, including schools, hospitals, universities, trauma centers, homebound, foster homes, group homes, intermediate care facilities for individuals with intellectual impairment, nursing homes, and large residential facilities. She served as a court-appointed witness and a resource content expert for 7 federal court cases regarding services for the developmentally disabled. She's presented at numerous local, state, national, and international conferences, published articles and professional books, journals, monographs, and an exceptional parent magazine. She has been awarded 3 patents for her amazing therapeutic tools that she's going to tell us about today. She's been recognized by her peers and community for outstanding clinical achievement, which of course is why we want to talk to her today. I recently went to her course and just loved her because you're going to love her energy as well. And she has a new book coming out, not sure when, she can tell us, but it's about language development using action words instead of just nouns and objects, called Alligator Alphabet. It's going to be set in a swamp in Florida because that's where Debra practices. Whew. Is there anything I forgot?
No, you did great.
I did great. Okay. So tell us a little bit about how you got started, who you are. Give us some background.
So growing up, I always have been interested in helping people. Both of my parents were teachers. I knew I didn't want to work in only a school setting because I saw how that went for my parents. I wanted a broader venue than that. And my best friend's older sister was a speech pathologist, and we thought she was just amazing. So of course we had to do whatever she did. And I'm so glad that she chose to be a speech pathologist, because that really gave me a wonderful career that I have enjoyed every single day of my life that I've been a speech pathologist. So starting in 75 in Arkansas at Arkansas State University, where we only had 2 professors. And only one had a PhD.
Wow.
They've grown tremendously since then, I'm happy to say. And then to University of Arkansas Medical Sciences campus, which was a wonderful setting for lots and lots of information about anatomy and physiology. And I had the opportunity to work with people that at that time, there weren't a lot of options for people that didn't follow commands, that were in state facilities, who had a lot of physical and cognitive concerns that our usual traditional approaches just didn't really work for. And I love a mystery. I love puzzles. I love solving problems. So it was always a really happy thing for me to figure out, how can I get from this point to this point, and what can I do to make this different? I also had the benefit of working with really excellent occupational and physical therapists who were providing tremendous change for these individuals that had multiple issues. And even though they couldn't follow commands, they were making functional change for movement with the big muscles from the neck down. And as I watched what they were doing with a lot of NDT principles and just good body mechanics and changes with assisted movement, I knew there had to be a way to do that from the neck up for the little muscles of the face. Because I'm such an A type, though, I wasn't happy, because even though I could make changes, I didn't know how to quantify that. So I studied more and figured out a way to have an anatomical reference for each person's face, so I would know where the muscles were based on their structures, because we're made in a symmetrical way in the absence of a problem like a cleft or some structural anomaly. So finding where those muscles were, I could then estimate, I know where this muscle group is, I know the size of it for this face, and I know how much it should move. And that led to the Beckman oral motor protocol. that gave me a way to quantify how are things moving for each person instead of giving an average for size. So now I have quantification, a way to track progress, and then lots of different ways to activate the muscles that complement all the other strategies that we have.
Awesome. Now, back in the day when you first started, then did you see, was that your impetus really was like, I saw this gap where we weren't working manually as speech pathologists, like we weren't working on the muscles? Or because, you know, obviously it's an issue, we can get into that later, but it's an issue where people don't get in there and do manual things. Were more people open back then, or were you kind of a pioneer initially?
Well, remember in Arkansas, it's a very rural area, and I often was the only speech pathologist with a huge caseload in settings where no one else was serving. So I would go to something called day service centers, where anyone in the community that the school didn't want to deal with ended up coming, because the law didn't protect them at that time. Sure. And so these were people with really significant issues with all different kinds of systems involved, sort of like untying all the knots in your string so you can make it work. Well, that I had to do lots of problem solving.
Yeah.
So I got a very quick education that told me I had not a clue what I was doing. But it's just, I'm such an A type that wasn't good enough. And
right.
So
it's not a good feeling.
Striving and reading and talking with people and getting lots and lots of input. All of us are really good at watching what happens and describing what happens. And I do have people that follow commands on my caseload too. But even for those individuals, often they were missing really basic movement control, limited range or limited strength, that you can't really quantify just by observing. I could see trends. I'm pretty good at guessing what it is, but even if I guessed, I couldn't quantify that so that I'd be able to track it over time.
Right, right. So do you find that when you're teaching students now that they're a little bit more prepared for this muscle-based work and they understand it, or when they come to you, it's still the first time they've heard of working as you do?
I think that all of us get such great information about what's there, like the names, the labels, the tracks, the locations, but not how to assess it or change it. Right. For people that do not follow commands. I know we have great strategies for the individuals that can do the biofeedback and they can listen to us and follow commands, but most of my caseload are not at that level, either because of their age or their cognitive concerns.
So your caseload right now, I know you do a lot of work with infants. Do you have a broad range? Are you doing more infants? Do you just have an infant clinic day? Tell me a little bit about your work with the babies.
So the work with the babies came about at the request of the lactation consultants locally, because I was working with more complex concerns for babies with certain syndromes or with anatomic differences like clefts or other concerns, charge syndrome, all those kinds of things, trachs. And we were able to get them not only to move better, but often also like trisomy 21, especially also getting them able to be able to breastfeed, which is such a wonderful thing for bonding for the families that are already experiencing so many other issues. It's just nice to have that normal response and experience for the family. The lactation consultants asked me, if you can do that for the babies that have more complex concerns, can you please help us with these babies that are healthy term babies, but they're not nursing? In my head, this is what I was thinking. Healthy term babies, I don't even know what to do for a healthy term baby because that's not my area of expertise. Right. So, like every good therapist, I said, well, let's do a study about that. So we did it double blind. The lactation consultants had their assessments that they did, and then they would send to me the babies on a random way, some who didn't have concerns and some who did, because what we're trying to find out is what is a good way to screen for those babies that might have motor control issues. Right. And then my other big question was, why are they having any concerns? Because they're healthy and they're term babies. So we developed something called the Manual Oral Motor Breastfeeding Examination Screening Tool. We worked really hard to get that an acronym, Mom Best. It is a screening tool that takes less than a minute to do. And we took two components from the Beckman protocol to find out, could there be a motor control issue? So durational jaw movement and mid-blade tongue elevation. And it was found to be 80% accurate in identifying babies with motor control issues. So that was helpful for the lactation consultants who knew there's something else going on, but what is it? Right. So by doing that, they were able to more confidently say there might be a motor control issue here, not just a lazy baby, sleepy baby, or something else going on. The information that we gathered from those moms in the study, those first 100 babies, were interesting in the trends that they showed. So we had, for example, double the number of moms who had had group beta strep. We had moms who had had concerns during pregnancy. Some of the things that we might know would raise a red flag, like placenta previa, preterm labor, gestational diabetes, preeclampsia, things that cause them to have more issues that affect what happens for them during gestation, labor, and delivery. And then we also identified things that were happening during labor. For example, labor longer than 12 hours was a stressor. Pitocin longer than 4 hours was a stressor. Things that I hadn't really considered a big deal. Yes.
Yeah.
And then other things that we're more familiar with, like nuchal cord, heart rate fluctuations for the mom or the baby, need for oxygen for mom during labor, need for oxygen for the baby following delivery, after delivery, low blood sugar for the baby, poor temperature regulation for the baby, other things that are little red flags that might cause concerns ongoing, for lots of areas. And then other things like reflux was a big one. Constipation, meaning that they're not pooping every day, which can have a lot of implications for other things too. So we actually had 174 possible stressors, but we only had 100 babies in the study. So I was working with a statistician at the university, and they said, well, you don't really have enough data here, you can't publish. Now I know, based on conversations with other researchers, you just publish it anyway and say you need more data. But those trends have held, and I've now seen I think it's over 5,000 babies, and those trends are holding. But two things that were not stressors, use of an epidural and C-section, were not stressors. So I think what happened is that over the years, we looked at those two things as stressors, but in fact, it was the 48 hours of labor with the 36 hours of Pitocin and the heart rate fluctuations and all those kinds of things that really were causing concerns following delivery.
Right. Now, do you have that published somewhere now, Deborah? Or that's
I have the data.
You have the data.
Now
I want that.
Well, I can send that to you. Yeah. But now we need to do it with COVID. Because we didn't have COVID. COVID was, so now we're seeing moms who had COVID during gestation. Yes. And that's affecting, like, for one mommy who got COVID just as a cold. She didn't even realize it was COVID. In the second trimester, she was fine. But at delivery, and thank goodness she was at a hospital, they found that the COVID virus had calcified her placenta. Wow. So had she been in a setting other than a hospital, she would have exsanguinated. She would have bled out.
Right.
I mean, that is so serious. And I would have no idea something like that would happen.
Right, right.
These babies are showing weakness. There is nothing wrong neurologically. It's just weakness. And because those movements all started by the end of the first trimester, the little movements that we can do for them, get it back. The average was 3 weeks, but the shortest time for the babies in the initial 100 babies was 2 days. That was the shortest, but that baby only had 1 or 2 stressors. And then there are babies that were outliers, but by 3 weeks, 93 out of 100 were nursing well. None of these babies had anything structural. nothing structural. This is in absence of anything structural, no lip tie, no tongue tie, nothing like that, all completely healthy according to the pediatrician. So that means motor control, and the moms were doing great. So to be in this study, they had to have seen the physician, they had to have seen the lactation consultant, rule out anything else, and then come to me.
Wow.
And if we found motor control issues, we could get those babies nursing rapidly.
Sure.
Did you look at whole body motor control as well?
Oh, a lot of them had great control neck down, like they weren't showing issues neck down, but these are healthy term babies. But we all work with the babies that everywhere it's a problem. It's not just neck up. But this particular study, on purpose, we did not include those babies that might have anything else going on. So it's just showing us that it is a critical concern that needs to be part of our complete assessment, and be very particular to note what's happening for range and strength. So on that study, and it's held as a trend, 90% of the babies had 2 or more areas below 50% for strength. The 2 areas that showed up more than 90% of the time, posterior cheek strength and durational jaw movement. Sometimes lips, sometimes tongue, but mostly posterior cheek and jaw. But if you think about that, that's the walls of your face and the floor of your mouth. Okay, if you don't have stability there, how are you going to do all of the other things? It's like not having a core for your body, so you can't walk, sit up, or move. Well, if your cheeks and jaw aren't stable, it's going to make it harder. And the good news is we have so much plasticity for the face, it changes quickly. When we did our demonstration with the IRB, we only could see, 10 babies under 48 hours in the hospital. We had permission to do 10 babies as our demonstration under 48 hours. Those babies changed within hours.
Wow.
I know, but then we got out because we only had permission to see 10 babies under 48 hours. So my hope was that we could make this screening tool part of what we do, kind of like the APGAR, and if there are concerns, and the baby's having problems latching. Okay, that's the other big part, because everybody has weakness. That they get a full assessment by the licensed therapist at the hospital, and the caregivers get to know what to do immediately. Breastfeeding is not supposed to hurt. That is a big fat lie. And nipple confusion is an interesting term, because confusion is a cognitive state. Babies are completely reflexive, so it can't be that. So what is it? It's those motor control issues that in the past we didn't really have a reliable way to test, but now we do.
Excellent.
I love that explanation, Debra. So so when you talk about doing jaw control, just for like maybe a lactation consultant who's listening right now, you're talking about phasic bite and testing that, is that right? Or testing?
Not phasic. Phasic is a bit faster at 1 per second. So we're looking for vertical movement that occurs at 1 per second.
Okay.
When we did our screening tool, we made it really simple, because at less than 10 seconds of durational movement, babies were very disorganized.
Right. And our goal would be on that screening, is that right?
For the therapist, yes, it's 20 is the goal, as a still minimal, really minimal competency, because we do hundreds. Babies do thousands. When they're nursing, their jaw's moving. So we made it 10 seconds for the durational jaw movement, left and right, and mid-blade elevation 3 out of 3. So the center of the tongue lifting. In the past, we've all been told suckling comes first and then sucking. That's false. In utero, starting by the end of the first trimester, it's sucking. The tongue is lifting up and down. It's not, for nutritive suck, it's lifting up and down. For non-nutritive, it goes forward and back. But you have that elevation starting at the end of the first trimester. So there are falsehoods that are still out there that people just keep saying. It's not based on anatomic movement that we can now show. So getting that information out to be public information, it's really a challenge.
Yes, I remember us talking about.
Thank you for helping me. Yeah, thank you for helping me with that.
Well, I love it. I remember you talking about that with when we were in Florida, and I was listening to you, and you were talking about jaw opening and closing, and how people even just directionally put the pressure on the wrong area. Why are we pressing down to stimulate a chew when the mouth is already open? And in my mind, I was like, well, I don't do that, but it is true that a lot of people do that, and they're just not thinking functionally. We're trying to get the mouth to close. So why are we working so much on mouth opening? And Yeah, it doesn't
So
make
the other interesting thing about that, and this is another big falsehood, everybody says bite down. We don't bite down. We chew up.
Yes.
You don't move this whole part of your head. You move your mandible.
Right.
So
Right.
we chew up. So you need to give the pressure up to get that activation for the pterygoid muscles.
Right. And that's just critical thinking that people
But
are
we know that to be true because we know how the jaw moves, but we still say it. It's like,
I don't know why.
bite down, you chew up. So yes.
Yes, love it. Now, I did have a question. I digress a little bit. With some of these stressors you're talking about with these infants, do you do prenatal counseling? Like, do you have it out there where you talk to some of these moms who might have like preeclampsia or some kind of issue? I mean, are you able to reach your community to let them know, like, we're going to be looking for these issues when your child is born so that we can get you reorganized?
I think to make that a standard practice, it would take a lot more information to all of the pediatricians and the people that are the OB-GYNs. They are the ones who really need to know about that. And I did put on Beckman Oral Motor, and you have the tree link, the link tree.
I do.
Right?
I'll put that
Put up there that you helped me put together.
Yeah.
And on beckmanoralmotor.com under downloads, I have 2 PowerPoints, one for the NICU docs and one for the lactation consultants that talk more about those concerns. But there's more to come on that. And I'm happy to help anybody that wants to do a study about that.
Right. Well, and Terry and I feel really strongly about that, wanting to get that information out in West Michigan. We want to start doing like a prenatal program where we can, because we know we can reorganize babies so quickly. Terry is a specialist in reflex integration in the body. And so with her knowledge combined with what I know, we get really excited about the change that we know we can make really fast, especially when we know that there might be a predisposition for something, even though it might be slight. We're super excited to make sure we get babies on track fast. And so that's kind of one of our goals for 2022. So that's why we're talking to you.
The other thing I'd like to point out is that Beckman Oral Motor has been proven efficient in lots of studies, to the point that people now think you just need to do these techniques. No, the studies show that the interventions work, but the practice is that you do an assessment first, and that's by the licensed SOP or OT. And that assessment includes much more than just what's happening for the muscles of the face.
Sure.
And then you implement whatever treatment is appropriate, including whatever interventions are needed for those muscles for the face. But I see articles all the time where they say, well, we did Beckman and we did non-nutritive sucking, and Beckman didn't work by itself. Well, it was never intended in that way. It's not a treatment that's standalone, and it's not being used in a professional model when those kinds of researches are done. The techniques work great, but they're supposed to be part of a whole system of assessment, plan, implementation, evaluation. So we've already proven they work. That is not an issue anymore, although they keep doing those studies. So I think it's because it makes an easy study, because here's these 4 things you can do. And but it's not everybody needs this. That is not the point. The point is make sure the babies who do need it get what they need. And it's usually not just the muscles for the face. It might be.
Yes.
We want to be sure that nothing else is missing. It's not a standalone treatment. It's just a component of what we do.
Right. And then you need to assess exactly what you're doing. It's not just a list of exercises that you go through. It's a professional assessment and figuring out where to support. Right. Absolutely.
But 2 things that I really would like every mom and dad to know: don't feed your, if you have to supplement, and there are babies who need that, don't feed them nose up. That is so dangerous for babies under 3 months. They're going to choke. Talk about poor state regulation. As soon as they're nose up, they're in their most helpless position. Keep them consistent with breastfeeding. Have them ear toward the floor, shoulders higher than hips, neck straight, because they would be at the breast in a sideline position. They would not be nose up. That's dangerous. So under 3 months, we made a video for that. Please have the baby on their side. You don't have to do pacing. They can pace for themselves. So there are some good tools out there that talk about showing, is the baby getting unregulated? Well, they're definitely going to become disorganized if you're feeding them nose up. That's just a bad idea. Even though you say upright, they're going to tilt their head up to be able to take the bottle. They need to be on their side under 3 months. If I could get every caregiver to know that, it would help so many babies, you can use a faster flow nipple because any excess just goes right out the lower cheek. They're not going to choke.
Got it.
Side-lying if they need a supplement, and whatever bottle they want, but side-lying if they need a supplement. And then that burping position is so helpful because it keeps their shoulders higher than their hips, their trunk elongated, they can press with their feet, and their head is supported just on your index finger. There's no pressure on their neck. So they can lower their head. And that burping position, light pressure 1 per second, is very organizing for lots of reasons. As you know, that 1 per second is a rhythm for humans for so many things, instead of beating them so hard and fast, which just makes their breathing go crazy. But if you go back to that 1 per second light pat, they're so much happier. Those 2 videos are also on my YouTube channel for free, and you have the Linktree app for that.
Yep, I was just going to ask if they were on your YouTube channel to make sure that we got that connected to this podcast.
Yeah, free. You can't beat free.
You can't beat free. And here's the thing that I think is so amazing about just all of these wonderful experts that Terri and I have been talking to recently is they're all out there giving this information. It's not hidden. It's like, this is what I've been doing for 30, 40 years. And I'm telling you, this is how you do it. Like anecdotally, I've seen, like you said, over 5,000 babies. It's very exciting to have this information. We just need to make sure it gets in everybody's hands so that they start making the changes they need to make. Tell me about home programming and how important it is for your families that you work with to go home and now implement what you've given them.
So as you know, 30 minutes a week is not going to change much. Even if you're really good at what you do, 30 minutes a week is not going to make it change. But for the 3 to 5 minutes at a time that you work on speech and language, you can make huge changes. For the muscles of the face, you don't even need that much time. 1 to 3 repetitions of whatever, which could be less than 30 seconds, 3 to 5 times a day at the most. So we want to activate the muscle, not fatigue it as far as motor control things. Speech and language, 3 to 5 minutes throughout their day makes it more usable, more accessible, and helps them integrate that new skill into their everyday activities. So I have parents with me. I don't treat a child alone. Every child that comes to me, their family member or whoever they've been designated is with them. You know, it could be a caregiver, it could be a grandmother. They have to have somebody with them, because I know it's useless to try to only do 30 minutes at a time. It's just not enough. So we ask for them to do the carryover. Everyone leaves with their paper that shows this is what they did today and this is what they need to work on. I let them video the whole session. They can video any part of the session. We make certain they get to practice before they leave. And even with that, it's still a challenge, because it sounds like, oh, it's okay if you just ask for 2 to 5 minutes. But if you have a baby, a couple toddlers, you're working from home, it's craziness. So even that's a lot to get 2 to 5 minutes at a time when you're working on speech and language things. And then the little bit for the mouth, often what I ask caregivers to do is do that morning and night, so they get a little bit of input when they're toothbrushing, because they're already inside their child's mouth. So it works a little better.
Sure. And I was going to ask that, do you normally pair it with function? Like, do you encourage parents to do it and then have a meal, or do it and then brush their teeth, like when they're doing the oral motor work?
So that's a really good question. You get a 2-hour carryover on any of these little movements that we're providing. So that means anything over the next 2 hours is going to have a benefit. So it's not quite as regimented as things like the brushing program, where you have to do it at a certain time to make it effective. For the muscles, anytime in the day, it's still going to have a benefit. And the goal is to move it internal to the muscles, so they're not dependent on anybody helping them at all. But it just takes a bit. Usually on our study, the babies under 3 months, it was with about 3 weeks to get those changes average. For most of us, it's 8 weeks for muscles to change.
Okay.
That's just muscle physiology, all of us, about 8 weeks. But within that, there are differences, depending on what you're starting with. You know, not everybody's going to be able to make all of those changes. You don't know till you do your assessment, implement those strategies, and then see how it changes over time.
Yeah. It's a lot of good information there, Debra. You're a wealth of knowledge. You know that?
Well, I'm in the right field because I love to talk. So that's good.
So what is your current focus? Are you focusing on the babies right now? Do you have another research focus? What are you working on?
That's ongoing for the infants and getting the information out. So thank you for helping me to do that.
Absolutely.
And getting more therapists trained. We're seeing a big downturn in the number of therapists available. The cohort for University of Central Florida, for this cohort, which would now be doing their offsite practicum, there were 14 people. Usually there are 60.
Oh, wow.
Really? Wow.
2 years ago, COVID started. So
yeah, right.
we may see some shortages for critical staffing for therapists, and I'm sure it's not just speech pathology.
Sure. I haven't noticed
it. I'm worried about that. I gotta train more people.
I know. I mean, we still get a lot of, I guess I haven't asked for attendance per se, like how many people are in a class. We get a lot of requests for internships still. So we have to kind of pare that down. That's interesting. Huh. Well, I hope that's not the case, because it's definitely going to be a need. Like you said, we don't even know the fallout from COVID, let alone infants, a little bit older kids, the masking, just with a myriad of things. Breathing with adults. I see all kinds of issues with breathing in adults. Yeah. So many things.
And I'll just put it out there. I love grad students. So if you want to come to sunny Florida, call me.
I know. And you said that last time, you love grad students and you're looking for them. What an amazing opportunity. If anybody wants to go to Florida for a few months and work with Debra, I mean, your head would explode just to learn from her. So it's exciting. I had one more question. What was it? Oh, tell me, do you have OTs at your building as well? Okay, good.
Yes, we have occupational and speech therapy, and we did have PT, but she just went home to be with her baby. So if there's a PT that likes working with babies, I've got an opening for you too, because it's so critical to have that complete team. And we work with the lactation consultants and the behavior analysts, although they're not my employees, they're part of our team.
Sure.
Same with a good GI doctor, good neurologist, good eye doctor, good audiologist. You need all of that, good ENT. It's really important to have a team.
Right. We hear that a lot, and we try that a lot here in West Michigan ourselves, which is another reason we've been interviewing people, because we want to build our team here. We want to make sure that we have all the right professionals. So, well, I know we have your link tree, which has all of your stuff. And when I say stuff, I mean everything. Debra has a YouTube channel with like really short videos that are super helpful. She has a Tri-Chew that I use every day. The BPOP, which is the Beckman Oral Probe, which I use every day. What's the
spoon? The
what?
easy spoon, the flat
spoon. I have the easy spoon.
Now, see, this is how bad I am. I should have all those products to just show you, but I didn't think about that.
You know what? I have a toolbox, and it's at work, and I don't. Terry has it somewhere in my office. But no, your easy spoons. You have a soft one, right, and a firmer one. Are those your 3 patents? Those tools?
Those are the 3 things that I've developed, right?
Okay, great. So we have those tools, and all of our therapists are going to, at various times. Are you offering live trainings yet again, or are you still online for your?
Yes, we have some coming up, and we have a university share coming up, I think in Michigan. The university share, the university gets 30 free seats, and they provide a location, and I sell the other seats. It works out great. They can get their students trained for free. They just provide a location.
Where is that in Michigan?
It'll be on the website. We have to finish signing the contracts, but I've done that for a couple of universities. I love doing that too.
Oh, that's fantastic. That's a great
idea. I will go anywhere that someone wants to provide a location. You don't have to pay me anything. I can fill the seats. I just need a location.
Oh man. How big of a location do you need?
Well, it's going to be a little different now. Usually we say 60, but it might be a smaller venue just because of COVID. It's okay.
Yeah. So, or if you're coming to Michigan to do this university thing, maybe we should connect, because we could fill some seats too. You can come.
Okay, so yeah, just contact.
We have a whole office of therapists that would love to spend some time with you.
Well, I think the live is much better, and I should tell you, we have done them throughout the epidemic, but in the safest ways that we always do, and we haven't had any breakouts.
Yeah, right.
We have not, but we glove up, we don't come sick, we follow good procedures for hygiene like we always do. And my clinic has been open the entire time, because we are considered essential service. We have done online, but I've had live interactions throughout. But again, following all of the procedures, and we have not had anyone become ill, either me or whoever we're working with.
Yeah, right.
Because we're following the best procedures.
Yes, absolutely. I can attest. I was just there, and it was amazing. I learned so much. Okay, anything else? Terri, can you think of anything? You have some burning questions?
I feel like if I took over, we would go a whole nother route for another hour. So
I'll do it another time.
That would be amazing. We definitely want a part
That would be a
two.
great idea.
Yes, and that would be a really fun conversation to have, but we might need to, stick to the basics, I guess.
Yes.
Okay, so we're going to link all of your goodies because she has an amazing website, like you said, YouTube channel, Facebook. She has these tools. She has this wonderful book coming out. Is there anything you'd like to add, Debra, before we?
Well, I just want to thank you for doing this and sharing your knowledge and making sure the parents get what they need to be supported, because it's so hard when things are different and you just don't know where to go. It's so hard. And there's a lot of misinformation out there. So it's really great that you have figured out a way to put that information out there so people can access it. So thank you.
Well, you're welcome. And that does lead me to one question. What would you say for parents? We'll end on this one. What's the key information when they meet a therapist? What should they ask, or how should they navigate that to make sure they know they're having a person that's using best practices?
Oh, well, one thing is, are you allowed in the session with them?
It's important.
Another is, if you ask them a question, can they tell you why?
That's a good one. Yeah. They always have to be able to tell you why.
And they should also be able to show you or give you access to people that they've worked with in the past. How many people have you worked with this? They should be able to tell you that and be able to give someone for you to contact.
Absolutely.
The other thing is their interaction styles. I don't know therapists that would be a therapist if they didn't interact well.
Sure.
But if your gut level says this isn't right for me or my child, don't go there. There are options.
Right. And I like to throw in there a good home program. It's important that you're getting ideas for home. You have, whether they're just ideas or whether they're exercises, there's always something that your therapist should be a facilitator and should be helping you to make those changes last.
And they should involve you in the session as the parent. 100%. If they don't hand off to you during that session, something's not right. Like they need to say, okay, your turn. Because the parent's the one who's going to be with that child all the time.
Absolutely. Critical. I love it. Well, Debra, I can't thank you enough. I had so much fun. Let's do a part 2, and I'll get this all put together with all of your great information. And I really appreciate your time.
Thank you, ladies.
Thank you. I'll see you later. Have a great day.